It's nearly Super Bowl Sunday, but the Rams and the Patriots aren't the only ones going head-to-head.
It's a tough time to be a football fan. I grew up loving and playing the game. Now it's much more of a love-hate relationship.
After Colin Kaepernick was basically blacklisted from the NFL for taking a knee during the national anthem, the league and its famous halftime show are now under fire. I'm Katie Underwood, Toronto writer and editor.
I'm Ishani Nath, senior editor at Flair.com.
I'm Donovan Bennett, host and staff writer for Sportsnet. Being picked to perform at the Super Bowl halftime show used to be a coveted rite of passage for musical acts. It used to be a sign that they were on their way to icon status.
Prince, Beyonce, Michael Jackson, Lady Gaga, the Rolling Stones, icons. Instead, this year, we're getting Maroon 5. And they're getting skewered for taking the gig.
Some people say we should just put politics aside and just enjoy the game. But that halftime stage is one of the most watched television events of the year. And in this day and age, that makes it a political platform, whether you like it or not.
Donovan, this is your wheelhouse, so we're going to start with you. And you know, football's tough. Politics, though, that's a blood sport, and now we actually have a political football, right?
Yeah, I mean, context matters. If we go back to 2016, when Kaepernick kneeled, it became a political football for Donald Trump. It's something he spoke to his base about. And ever since, the NFL not really being in line with the players, forcing them not to protest, putting in rules around when they could protest, it was seen you're either on one side, you were with the players, you were pro-social activism, or you're with Trump and the NFL. And what has happened since? NFL coaches, as far as African Americans, the number has gone down. We have still never had a musical act that was a hip hop act. So this is not just about people feeling like Maroon 5 is the official band of soccer moms everywhere. It's that it's another area where Colin Kaepernick and people who look like them weren't given a real platform.
As a football fan, I mean, how do you just feel that it's become as political as it has?
Yeah, it's tough because as much as you want to just enjoy the game, you know that everything around the game now is political, and including the halftime act, which was supposed to be the thing that everyone, whether you like football or not, was interested in. And I feel like once again the NFL has gotten this so wrong.
Katie, we're going to talk about the NFL in just a second, but Katie, I mean, Maroon 5's perspective, right? This was both the gig that they couldn't possibly pass up and the gig that they couldn't possibly take, when you think about it. Is it fair to fault them for taking it?
Yes, I think it is, because they did take it. So it does merit criticism. When you make a choice to align yourself with an organization that has historically put profit over, you know, progressive social politics, I think you have to reasonably expect some criticism for that. I don't think anyone is saying Maroon 5 is the problem. Maroon 5 is the root of this, you know, hairy discourse around race relations in the States. No one's expecting that much from Adam Levine, I think, I'm going to be honest, in terms of wokeness. But I think, you know, you have to look at the power differential here and what the losses that are incurred from speaking out. Maroon 5 loses nothing from not taking this gig. I mean, it would be a nice thing for, you know, their personal CVs, I guess, but essentially after this is over, they could say, you know what, we're not doing it. We'll go back to Malibu, to our Victoria's Secret wives. Like, we don't really lose anything other than, you know, some Instagram followers.
But in your mind, an appearance at the halftime show is tantamount to what, an endorsement of the NFL's policies?
In this climate, it absolutely is. And I think, you know, Colin Kaepernick, on the other hand, he lost his job for speaking out about his views. And for him, it's, you know, a literal life or death issue. He's a black man in America. So I think, you know, you can't fault Maroon 5 for the entirety of the situation, but I think they need to expect some blowback, for sure.
Ishani, you know, one of the band members from Maroon 5 came out, and I should add that he's the one black member of Maroon 5, so PJ Morton, and he said in his statement that Maroon 5 can play for the NFL, players can play for the NFL, and we can all support Colin Kaepernick at the same time. Can they?
I think no matter what they do, it's going to be sending a message. If they incorporate some kind of messaging, like when U2 took the stage after 9/11, they had a huge message of inclusivity. They had the names of all the victims of 9/11 playing on a screen behind them. It was a political platform. So I think Maroon 5 has a chance to do something with their performance to recognize what's going on. But I am curious to see what happens on Sunday. Because either way, it's going to send a message to the people watching.
And you go back to the decision to enlist Maroon 5 in the first place. I mean, why why choose Maroon 5 in one of the blackest cities in the entire United States during a year in which the treatment of black people is as hot button an issue as it is?
For me, they should have just owned it and made it like an ode to Atlanta with all hip hop artists. But you run the risk of some of them surprising you, maybe not the way Justin Timberlake surprised us in years past, but surprising you with an ode to Kaepernick. And I do think, though, that this is an opportunity for an artist to really make a splash. We know that streams and downloads go up after the performance. These performances are more viewed than the actual highlights of the game on YouTube afterwards. And I think the NFL was afraid that if there was a social statement, people would be even more so talking about Kaepernick as the quarterback around the Super Bowl and not Tom Brady, who's been there now for the 9th time.
But I guess the bigger picture, though, that we all have to keep in mind is, the backdrop to all of this is the NFL's flagging numbers, right? So if you look at last year's Super Bowl, for example, viewership in both the United States and in Canada was down from the previous year, and not in an insignificant way. And then you have this halftime show, which historically has been like, filling Carnegie Hall. As far as items on a musical bucket list, this was one of them. And now you have artists who are having to defend themselves for even bothering to take part. So, at this point, is the NFL this kind of poisoned well, or is this just a one-year anomaly?
The Super Bowl is not just a game for Americans, right? It's associated with the concept of the American dream and community and freedom. So it's really kind of hypocritical to hear people who are saying just like, let us have our day, let us have this, tradition. They're often the people who are protected by privilege, not having to focus on these issues.
Outrage is also cheap these days, right? In this particular era. And if you look at someone like Cardi B, who has said, I refuse to take part in the halftime show, and yet, she's going to appear in a Pepsi ad for the Super Bowl. She's going to be playing in shows in the run-up to the Super Bowl itself. I do wonder if at the end of the day, the game is going to go on, the halftime show is going to go on, people are going to be outraged on Twitter, and they're going to skewer Maroon 5, and then we'll all just kind of carry on.
Yeah, it's interesting, and you mentioned Cardi B. If Maroon 5 plays the song that they have with her, she's going to benefit from those streaming numbers as well, even though she's waiting, 7 days to perform at the Grammys. I think the difference now, why we're not going to move on, is because it's not just fans, 100,000 signed a petition about this. It's other artists, other black artists who said to Travis Scott, you shouldn't be performing with Adam Levine and Maroon 5. Jay-Z, Meek Mill, the Reverend Al Sharpton, Michael B. Jordan, people who aren't even musical artists. They're the ones speaking about it, and their fans are being engaged. I think that's why this is different. The question is, where do you draw the line, to your point? If you're in a Super Bowl commercial, is that a relationship with the NFL? Should Pepsi not sponsor the halftime show? How many people do we want to be mad at? I think that's the interesting thing to see.
Deshani, I'll give you the last word.
I was going to say, you do have to draw the line. And in terms of Cardi B, I thought about this a lot. And I do think, the Pepsi ad is different because it's not directly benefiting the NFL. It's benefiting her and Pepsi. So she gets to get that money. And so I have, weirdly, no problem with that. But I do have a problem with people taking the halftime show and not considering these issues.
Okay, guys, Super Bowl Sunday just around the corner. Thanks so much.